This avalanche safety report is brought to you by MTN-TV. Learn more at MTN-TV.com.
Welcome to the weekly Avalanche Safety Report. I am here with Brian Lazar from the CAIC. How you doing today, Brian?
I'm doing well. How are you, Alan?
I'm well. Let's jump right into it. We've got the Red Mountain Pass incident. What an avalanche.
Yeah, unfortunately, this is our first fatality of the season, and a really tragic reminder of just how dangerous avalanche conditions have been essentially kind of since the Christmas period started loading snow on our weak snowpack. Here's an image of that avalanche that killed the skier on Red Mountain Pass on Tuesday. And of note here is that you can see there's many tracks on the slope, and as people kept stacking tracks, further skiers left. The last person essentially got a little bit too close to this wind-loaded depression just on the other side of this rib feature, triggered this avalanche, was caught, fully buried, and killed in this avalanche. And our condolences go out to all the friends and family involved in this. Just a couple days earlier, also on Red Mountain Pass, was another example on the other end of the spectrum. This was just two snowshoers snowshoeing along an old mining road up near Red Mountain Pass. And they pulled out essentially this little bank slip, very small avalanche, but in this gully feature. And so this, fully buried the snowshoer, who was fortunately dug quickly out by their partner and survived without injury or worse. But it does illustrate that even small avalanches can be quite dangerous in the wrong terrain feature.
It just sure seems like we've seen a lot of avalanche activity over the last week.
Yeah, it's a bit of an understatement. We've seen essentially a 2-week stretch where every day we are seeing at least one, and usually more than one, sometimes like up to a dozen, of human-triggered avalanches big enough to bury, injure, or kill a person. So a 2-week stretch where people are triggering these large and dangerous avalanches every day is all the evidence we need to demonstrate how dangerous conditions are. The most dangerous aspects are, west through north through east and southeast facing slopes at all elevations. And that is a lot of terrain harboring potentially dangerous avalanche conditions, which requires, essentially very conservative terrain choices as we move in through and around avalanche terrain. And here's what these avalanches are looking like. Here's one down near Telluride. You can see the avalanche broke just below the convex roll, which was the wind loaded in, thin rocky area, but they're starting to break pretty wide. Here's another one near Hoosier Pass. And in these cases, some of these avalanches are breaking near the ground, as you can see here on both the left and the right side of the image. Here's an example of a snowboarder who triggered an avalanche up near Kevlar Pass. And these are the kinds of avalanches that we were warning about. Again, you can see here, it took most of the season's snowpack. You can see the ground starting to show up. Fortunately, the snowboarder was not buried, injured, or worse. Again, another avalanche, a skier down in the flatter terrain below triggered this very large avalanche in steeper terrain above, which is why we are warning about giving steep slopes overhead wide buffers. And again, here's the one last example near Vail Pass. What I want to point out here is that these snowmobilers were recreating in very flat, gentle terrain, but they did have steeper slopes overhead. And sure enough, shortly after this photo was taken, one of the snowmobilers got a little too close to this slope, triggered the collapse that pulled the avalanche out of the steeper terrain above, and caught and partially buried the snowmobiler in this image, who again escaped without injury or worse. So we've had some close calls and some lucky outcomes outside of our one tragic avalanche fatality. And I do want to end by just showing some terrain to avoid as we move through and through the weekend and into early next week. And it's these obviously wind-loaded slopes. You can see on the left side of the image how the ridge has been scoured. It's loaded those slopes on the right-hand side, and it's thin, kind of rocky areas facing those most troublesome aspects. And again, one more example here. You can see it's seen obvious wind loading, big fat pillows of wind-drifted snow in terrain steep enough to slide, which again is about 30 degrees or steeper. And so you want to give terrain features like this a really wide berth, like this ski track on the right-hand side of the image did. It stayed well clear, essentially, and out from underneath of this, wind-loaded feature.
What a season we are having, but I really want to highlight that it's recreation of all different types. And thank you for sharing those different images this week. I mean, we saw skiing, snowboarding, snowshoeing, and snowmobiling
Yeah, and the avalanches, they just do not discriminate. So I kind of want to show you just what it's going to look like as we move through the weekend and early next week. So we still have widespread areas of considerable avalanche danger across the northern and central mountains. Things are improving, but they're improving slowly. And the operative word there is slowly. So the signs of instability are slowly diminishing. Those are those big rumbling collapses. The number of human-triggered avalanches are going down. The shooting cracks are less in your face. But that does not mean conditions are getting safe. And so even in areas where we start to see moderate danger, those yellow colors creep onto the map, it just means the chances of triggering an avalanche are very slowly going down, but the consequences of doing so are not.
Yes, yes. Well, Brian, thank you as always. And folks, you can stay up to date with the latest forecast at Colorado.gov/avalanche. Enjoy the backcountry and be sure to stay alert and stay safe.